Investors this morning digesting the president's latest post on Truth Social, warning that the U.S. will add an additional 25% tariff to 50% on steel and aluminum coming into the U.S.
They're bad for American workers, bad for American industry, and of course for Canadian industry as well.
The company has notified 74 of our members. They're placed on indefinite layoff.
100,000 jobs have disappeared in the U.S. Not because of automation, not because of China, but because of a decision from the White House called 50% tax on aluminum. This tax rate was once praised as America's protective shield, promised to provide the people with stable jobs and good incomes. But now, what they receive are just short, emotionless layoff notices. Meanwhile, across the border, Canada is quietly rising and gaining the upper hand. How did an America First policy lead to mass unemployment? And why are American workers, who were once his strongest supporters, now turning their backs on him? In today's video, we will delve into the entire story behind the aluminum war, from the initial goals to the widespread consequences, and more importantly, is this a sign of an underlying economic crisis forming? A small note for you is that the video content is compiled from various public report sources and does not aim to attack any government or individual. We strive to provide an objective and in-depth perspective for viewers to make their own assessments. Stay until the end of the video to learn more about the truth behind this disappearing job story. Do you remember in 2018, during the first term, the head of the White House announced a 10% import tax on aluminum, which was strongly supported by many people at the time? The reasons given were very clear: protecting national security, reducing dependence on foreign countries, and most importantly, bringing manufacturing jobs back to the US. In 2025, that tax rate increased to 25%, and now it is 50%. Applied to most partners, including Canada, a stunning announcement for the whole world. In a speech in Pennsylvania, the US president stated, "We will bring back aluminum jobs stronger than ever." A statement that sounds strong and decisive. But did reality unfold as America had hoped? Is there something that has been overlooked? Unlike simple items, aluminum production is one of the most energy-intensive processes on the planet. To produce 1 ton of aluminum, you need enough electricity to power a household for nearly half a year. And in the US, electricity is not cheap at all. Meanwhile, in other countries, such as Canada, there is an abundant, cheap, and clean source of hydroelectric power, which has allowed their aluminum industry to survive for decades. The numbers are the clearest evidence. The industrial electricity price in Quebec, Canada, is around 45 cents kT. As for electricity prices in many industrial states in the US, over 9 cents kT, and even higher when demand increases. The issue lies in the fact that taxes have increased, but domestic production costs have not decreased, and the result is factories in the US cannot compete. Even with a 50% tax rate seems like a solid protective barrier, but if there are no reinforcements inside the fortress, it is of no use. And in this case, the solution to support the American aluminum industry did not accompany it. No investment in energy infrastructure. There is no preferential electricity pricing program for metallurgy. There is no specific plan to reopen the factories that were closed decades ago. According to a report from Alcoa, one of the largest aluminum companies in the US, even with tax exemptions, they still do not dare to commit to reopening the plant if electricity prices are not guaranteed. Bill Oplinger, CEO of Alcoa, stated, "You can't restart a smelter just on promises. We need cheap, stable electricity." Raising the tax rate can create a strong media effect, but in reality, this could lead to a chain reaction. American companies importing aluminum would have to pay higher prices. Manufacturing businesses reduce their capacity, and the unexpected jobs are lost instead of being regained bitterly. Some call this a job tax because every time taxes increase, workers lose more opportunities. If you were an aluminum industry executive, what would you prioritize, imposing taxes or investing in energy? Please share your thoughts in the comments section, as your perspective is very important. Tax policy is not the only thing that creates consequences. What makes the situation more concerning is the reaction from the affected countries. What is Canada's counterattack plan? Will the countries that were once allies remain silent? We will find out right after this, and you might be surprised by how Canada is quietly rising. 100,000 workers have been laid off. An unbelievable number. But it's happening, and among them, there may be your relatives. When Alcoa, America's leading aluminum company, warned that 100,000 jobs were disappearing, many people thought that number was exaggerated. But the truth is that number is not only accurate, but it might even be an understatement. According to a report from Alcoa, cited by Reuters and CNN, the imposition of a 50% import tax on aluminum not only poses difficulties for the metallurgy industry, but also drags down a series of related sectors. Specifically, 20,000 direct jobs are affected by aluminum smelters in the US. 80,000 indirect jobs lost, including those working in transportation, machinery, maintenance, logistics, packaging, and construction of factories. A shock spreads like a domino effect. Not just the people standing in the smelting furnace, but the entire industrial labour ecosystem is being swept into the vortex. An elderly man has worked at the aluminum smelter in Kentucky for the past 23 years, but at the end of last month, he received a layoff notice. He was not fired for misconduct, nor for poor performance. He lost his job because the factory could no longer compete. He said, "I never thought a policy called Protecting America would leave me unemployed. The whole town he lived in once thrived, thanks to the factory, but now it has fallen into an oddly desolate state. Stores close early. Schools lack funding, and the nursing home can no longer afford to pay its staff. The 50% tax policy aims to promote domestic production. But what was unforeseen is that when the cost of raw materials rises, small businesses cannot bear the burden. And then some factories were forced to close because they couldn't afford the high aluminum prices. Others moved production abroad, and a series of supporting units had no choice but to cut staff. A strange effect. Import taxes, which were supposed to protect American workers, are causing them to lose their jobs first. But the strangest thing is that while American workers are struggling with a not-so-bright future just north of the border, Canada is doing the opposite. With cheap hydroelectric power, stable policies and open trade relations, Canadian aluminum plants continue to operate steadily, even increasing their capacity to welcome more orders from Europe and Asia. The paradox has never been clearer. An aluminum plant in Quebec, Canada, operates 24/7, has a preferential electricity pricing policy, and the workers still keep their jobs. As for the factory in Ohio, USA, it had to close due to high electricity prices and no support plan. An analyst in Toronto said, "In Canada, people don't need to say much. They just need to let the numbers speak." For many Americans, losing a job is not just losing a paycheck. For many middle-aged workers, a job also means health insurance, retirement benefits, and peace of mind for the family. That could be the job for a father supporting his daughter who is attending university. As a husband, working hard to earn money to treat his wife's diabetes. And it could also be a man nearing retirement age, trying to save up because he doesn't want to work extra after retiring. Many laid-off workers have spoken out. No one was prepared for this incident. We believe that jobs would come back. And even more surprisingly, very few people talk about these towns where jobs are being lost en masse. Maybe because it doesn't happen in big cities or because it's not loud enough to make the news every day. But the truth is, hundreds of thousands of families are cutting back on spending. The elderly are postponing retirement, and an entire generation of workers is losing faith in the American industrial dream. Do you know of a town that was once vibrant, but has now become desolate due to job losses? If so, please share that story because each story is a part of a larger truth. No one expected this to happen. No one denies that the American manufacturing sector needs protection. But perhaps America needs more than just a tax policy. Need to invest in infrastructure, energy, technology. We need to listen to those who are truly affected. And we need to dare to face the truth. If the policy causes workers to lose their jobs, it needs to be reconsidered. While the United States is facing a series of mass layoffs, factory closures, and debates over a 50% aluminum tax policy, Canada, the largest supplier of aluminum to the US, has not reacted loudly. No angry statements on television. No direct confrontation. Even the massive protests that many had predicted did not occur. Instead, Canada chose the path of silence and prepare thoroughly. A kind of reaction that is not loud, but enough to make the entire international market take notice. It's no coincidence that Canadian aluminum is gradually becoming a bright spot. The province of Quebec, which produces more than 90% of Canada's aluminum, is known as the aluminum capital of North America, with a special advantage abundant, cheap, and clean hydroelectric power. While aluminum smelters in the US struggle with rising electricity costs, those in Canada continue to operate steadily 24/7, maintaining production levels and even increasing capacity to meet international orders. Canadian aluminum accounted for nearly 60% of the total aluminum imported by the US before the 50% tariff was imposed. Each year, Canada exports more than 2.7 million tons of primary aluminum, mainly to the United States. And just in the first quarter of 2025, Canada's aluminum production increased by 12%, largely to fill the gap in the US market that is currently lacking. Canada does not send signals, but works quietly on many fronts, calling for WTO intervention when the US imposes tariffs on goods from partners who have signed the USMCA. Expanding trade negotiations with the EU and Asia to diversify the aluminum market and avoid dependence on the US increased subsidies for clean energy. Encourage factories to expand while keeping costs competitive. A senior official from Canada's Department of Industry shared in a closed-door interview, "We don't need to overreact. The market will self-correct. The unstable policies of the US are causing international manufacturers to turn to Canada in many industrial areas of Quebec and British Columbia." Canadians feel an indescribable sense of pride, not in a boastful way, but in a sense we are moving in the right direction, albeit slowly. An operations engineer at the aluminum plant in Saguin, Quebec, said, "I used to worry that US policies would negatively impact jobs here, but it turns out they are putting pressure on themselves. Not everyone is happy about this advantage. Many still feel regret over the once close trade relationship with the US that is now fraying. But there are also those who say it bluntly when the US wants to protect itself. They must accept that others will also move forward." While many American workers are leaving factories with cardboard boxes, factories in Canada are hiring engineers, operators, and logistics personnel. This contrast has left many Americans, especially in border states, astonished. They once believed that taxes would weaken Canada, but the reality is Canada is being chosen as an alternative supply hub. A question arises, is the US policy protecting the domestic industry, or is it giving a golden opportunity to competitors? Multinational companies producing cars, airplanes, and electronic components, which previously had their supply chains in the US, are gradually shifting their aluminum orders to Canada. It's not because they want to abandon the US, but because the costs are no longer reasonable. In Toronto, an aircraft parts distributor said, "We cannot continue importing aluminum from the US when the tariffs reach 50%. Canada has now become a more reasonable and safer choice." In the long run, this shift could solidify Canada's position as a hub for the clean energy industry, while the US gradually loses its leading role, not due to competition, but because of its own self-sabotage. Canadians don't need too many words to express their faith. Policies do not always need to be grandiose to be effective. And in this turbulent time, the image of a vigilant, cautious and steadfast nation has become a commendable anchor, not only for Canadian workers, but also for international investors and businesses seeking stability amidst the turmoil. When looking at Canada, the quiet but accelerating neighbour, many Americans are starting to ask, have we been too hasty? Is there a way to adjust without losing face? And does the government have enough courage to look back? In the next section, we will delve into the historical lesson where the tax policy once shook the steel industry and its repercussions still resonate today. There is something interesting and perhaps worth pondering. The history of the American economy seems to be repeating itself. In 2002, the US government also imposed tariffs on imported steel ranging from 8% to 30%. With the aim of protecting the domestic steel industry, this policy was then called Emergency Action for National Interest. Do you find it familiar at that time? Just like now, the government claimed that imposing tariffs would protect factories, preserve jobs, and revive industrial towns. But in less than 18 months, everything turned upside down. 200,000 jobs have disappeared. And that is just the number recorded by the Peterson Institute for International Economics. The paradox is that the number of jobs lost is greater than the number of jobs saved by the steel industry. An independent economic study shows that for every one job saved in the steel industry, nearly 8 other jobs in the steel-consuming sector are lost. At that time, in industrial states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Kentucky, a series of auxiliary factories producing cars, air conditioners, construction tools, etc. were forced to close due to skyrocketing steel prices. A factory in Canton, Ohio, which once had more than 200 workers, is now just an abandoned warehouse. The rusted walls, dismantled machinery frames, and the cold echoes of a bygone industrial era. The biggest lesson from 2002 can be summed up like this. Protectionist policies are just an umbrella. But if it rains and there are no houses, no electricity, no foundation, that umbrella won't save anyone. Only imposing taxes without reducing domestic costs or supporting infrastructure. American workers will be the first to bear the consequences, and that is why many economists warn if we do not learn from the past, the next industry to bear the burden might not be aluminum, but rather automobiles, airplanes or food. In the next part, we will see the domino effect spreading to consumer sectors where the average American will feel it most acutely: rising prices, fewer choices, and small businesses increasingly showing signs of fatigue. Are you ready to delve deeper into this spiral? When people think of aluminum, they mostly think of beverage cans or office windows. But the truth is, aluminum is present everywhere in modern life. In cars, aluminum is used to manufacture chassis, doors, and hoods to reduce weight and increase fuel efficiency. In airplanes, aluminum is a mandatory material to ensure durability while remaining lightweight. In household appliances, aluminum is present in the casings of washing machines, refrigerators, and air conditioners. And don't forget food packaging. From soda cans to milk cartons, all require aluminum. When aluminum prices rise by 40–60% due to a 50% import tax, the entire production chain is affected, not sequentially, but in a domino effect. Nowhere is it felt more acutely than by domestic car manufacturers. According to a report from the Alliance for Automotive Innovation, in just the first 6 months of 2025, the production cost of a mid-size sedan in the US increased by an average of $200, with the rise in material costs accounting for 65% of this, primarily due to aluminum. A representative from Ford stated, "We cannot quickly find an alternative to aluminum, and domestic prices are continuously rising. That forces us to raise prices or cut back on models to make it easier for you to visualize." I'll give you an example. A 2024 Ford F-150 manufactured in the US costs $38,000. The same model 2025 version is over $41,000 USD, even though no significant features have been added. And in Canada, a car manufacturer in Ontario uses domestically sourced aluminum that is not taxed, keeping prices almost unchanged. Customers are choosing cars imported from Canada instead of those manufactured in the US. And it's not just cars. Refrigerators, air conditioners, dishwashers, rice cookers, all have aluminum casings or aluminum thermal components. When aluminum prices rise, appliance manufacturers are forced to reduce model options, focusing on popular product lines instead of diversifying. A washing machine manufacturing company in Arkansas has cut 40% of its low-cost product line. Why? Because the cost of aluminum no longer allows them to keep the price below $500 USD. Consumers are now buying less, choosing less, and spending more cautiously. In a Nielsen survey in 2025, 58% of American consumers over 50 reported that they had postponed or cancelled plans to buy new household appliances due to high prices and fewer models available. Cans of water, canned food packaging, toothpaste tubes all require shaped aluminum. Now, the rising packaging costs have led to higher retail prices, and many small businesses have had to withdraw from the market. No one skips a meal for a can of soda. But when hundreds of products increase in price slightly each month, household spending gradually dwindles. Not only consumers, but small businesses are also gradually feeling the impact of the aluminum tariffs. If large corporations can still negotiate input prices or move their factories to Canada or Mexico, small businesses in the US have almost no way out. A manufacturer of aluminum cabinets in Michigan said, "We cannot import aluminum at low prices, and we cannot raise selling prices because customers cannot afford it. Now, we are operating on a shoestring, waiting for the day we can no longer hold on." Since the beginning of 2025, according to statistics from the US Small Business Administration, nearly 5,700 small manufacturing businesses in the light metal industry have had to close or suspend operations. Behind each of those numbers are dozens of workers losing their jobs, families being disrupted, and a regional economy at risk of being dragged down. The domino effect is pulling from the aluminum industry to consumers' wallets. From aluminum affecting cars, from cars affecting shopping demand, from reduced consumption affecting factories, from the factory reducing its capacity, affecting employment. And finally, the spiral of economic decline spreads like an oil stain. Forecasts from the Conference Board indicate that if aluminum and steel prices remain at their current high levels, the US domestic manufacturing economy could see a 0.4% GDP growth reduction for the year. If a policy is implemented to protect this industry, but ultimately causes many other industries to suffer, is it worth keeping? And if you are a consumer, have you noticed that prices are rising while quality and choices are decreasing? Please share your thoughts below. Your real-life experiences can help others see the bigger picture more clearly. In the next section, we will analyze feasible solutions together. How to maintain domestic production while still reducing pressure on workers, businesses, and consumers. Don't take your eyes off it, because the story doesn't end here. On the global chessboard, the US is taking a step back, and its rivals are not standing still. The global aluminum market share is gradually shifting. Canada, Australia, and the Nordic countries are receiving more orders. Europe and China are seeking alternative suppliers, placing their trust in partners who are not subject to tariffs. The question is no longer who is right, who is wrong, but if the US continues this tax policy, will its leading role still exist? An analyst at the Institute for International Economics in Washington bluntly stated, "We are losing the market not because of competition, but because we are making it difficult for ourselves." After more than a year of implementing the 50% tax rate, The US is at a crossroads option, one flexible adjustment taxing by region, by origin. Instead of imposing an absolute tax rate of 50%, the government could exempt strategic partners like Canada, which has signed the USMCA and has high environmental standards, impose lower taxes on recycled aluminum or environmentally friendly products. Reassess the situation quarterly instead of applying it rigidly annually. This option helps maintain most of the supply, protect small businesses while still keeping competitive pressure with low-cost imports from China. According to estimates from the Tax Reform Institute, simply reducing the tax from 50% to 20% on Canadian aluminum would help American businesses save nearly $3.2 billion in raw material costs each year. The second option is to maintain the tax. Wait for America's internal strength to rise. This is the current choice, with the belief that if there is enough pressure, domestic factories will increase production, create jobs, and regain market share. But as previously analysed, that internal strength seems to be weakening because domestic production costs remain too high. Small businesses do not have enough time and capital to endure. And most importantly, clean aluminum smelting technology in the US is lagging behind Canada by at least 5 to 7 years. Waiting for self-reovery might just mean waiting for more unemployment and factory closures. And another option is to completely withdraw the tax policy, but would it be a loss of face? Some politicians suggest that the US should completely abolish import tariffs and return to the free trade model as it was before 2018. But this goes against the America First slogan. And more importantly, if removed abruptly, the remaining domestic metallurgy sector could suffer a real deep crack. That is, the political and economic costs are both too high and not easy for everyone to accept. When the US imposed aluminum tariffs, it was not just an economic decision. It was also a declaration of trade power. Now, if adjustments are made, many people are concerned. Is the US weakening, or is it being forced to step back? But there are also contrasting opinions from Canadian experts. Knowing when to be wrong and knowing how to adjust is what truly makes great nations admirable. While Canadians are enjoying a stable market, many Americans, especially the working class, are wondering, are we paying the price for decisions made in Washington without consulting us first? If you are an American consumer who is paying more for cars, air conditioning and food, would you want this policy to be adjusted if you are Canadian? What do you think when you see the US, once the number one partner, now turning around to tax you? Please leave a comment. We want to hear your thoughts because community feedback will help make the policy more aligned with reality. For over a century, America was seen as a model of leadership, not only in technology but also in economic thinking, openness, and global confidence. However, today, as we look back at what happened with the 50% aluminum tariff policy, many cannot help but wonder, is America gradually losing its own strength in exchange for something called protectionism? While Washington debates, while a multitude of American workers like Mike are leaving the factory, Canada quietly increases its capacity, Europe diversifies its supply chains, and Asia expands its intra-regional trade networks. The world has changed. They no longer rely solely on the US. We did not make this video to attack any individual or government, but to ask a genuine question. What are we trying to protect, an industry? Or is it just a feeling of control in a world full of uncertainty? If the price to pay is tens of thousands of jobs disappearing, is it the skyrocketing prices of cars, food, and equipment? And is it the eroding trust of the people? Then, does that policy really protect America? We want to hear from you, those who are shopping, working, paying taxes and raising the next generation. If you are American, do you feel that the current policies are truly helping you? If you are Canadian, what do you think when you see your government rising, not through confrontation, but through patience and clean technology? Leave a comment below. Your real stories can change the community's perspective. If you find this video useful and believe that we need more fair, non-sensational and unbiased analyses, please like the video, subscribe to the channel and share it with friends who are interested in the economy, policy and the future of the United States and Canada. We do not represent any government organizations, political parties or corporations. All analyses in this video are based on public data, market reports, and objective observations with the aim of creating a space for healthy, civilized, and reflective discussions. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching.